On the day free agency started, the Chicago Bulls announced two smaller moves. They guaranteed the contract of Ford Leonard Miller, and they decided to waive Kam Jones, saving a little salary on his part. We're going to talk about that and more right here on the Bull-ieve Podcast. Make sure you hit the like button on this video. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And I'm going to continue to do my best to provide you coverage daily at this point. Speaking of, let me know if you like the name Bull-ieve. I kind of like it because I can call you guys Believers as the community grows, or I can change the name to Bulls Daily, since that's going to kind of be the theme of the episode. Let me know in the comment section which one you like better. Anyways, okay, first and foremost, let's talk about Leonard Miller, because to me, this was kind of a no-brainer. The Bulls guaranteed his $2.41 million contract for next season. And I'd argue it'd be a little bit more surprising if they hadn't done that, because think about what you're getting for that price. You're getting a 22-year-old forward who in just 27 games last year for Chicago averaged over 11 points and I believe 5.8 rebounds per game while shooting a really impressive 55% from the field. And whenever Billy Donovan needed someone because of injuries or lineup changes, it seemed like every single time Leonard Miller was the guy who just kind of stepped in and produced. He's capable of running the floor. He can rebound. He can finish around the basket. He can cut without needing the basketball in his hands. And I just think that Miller showed last year when he had, minimal expectations by Bulls fans. He showed that he can help the Bulls with his flexibility, because again, he can play either forward spot depending on the matchup. And he's a kid who's still developing. The jumper obviously has a lot to improve. And defensively, there's still some growing pains with rotations and positioning. But I do think the tools are there. He's long, he's athletic, he seems to be active. And maybe most importantly, all of that is only going to cost the Chicago Bulls $2.41 million next season. And in today's NBA, that's tremendous value. Championship teams aren't just built around max contracts, right? They're going to be built on finding players who can outperform their contracts. And I think Leonard Miller has a real chance to become one of those players. When you think about the bigger picture, right? Guaranteeing Leonard Miller's contract tells us something a little bit bigger than just about how the Bulls feel about Miller. It kind of tells you what Bryson Graham might be looking for. Take a look at the young players that this front office has to work with. Modest Buzelis, Caleb Wilson, Noah Essengay, and now you have a guy like Leonard Miller. You notice a trend, right? They're all long. They're all pretty athletic. They're versatile. They can all defend multiple positions. That fits what the modern vision that Bryson Graham is building for the Chicago Bulls team. For years, if you asked me what kind of team the Chicago Bulls were trying to build, I honestly was not very sure. And now I think at least we're starting to get a clear answer. Bryson wants versatility. He wants positional size. He certainly wants length. And he wants athletes who can switch defensively and continue developing. And I think Leonard Miller checks nearly every one of those boxes. And for $2.41 million, I think that's a great value. Well, also, just a week after they acquired him, Kam Jones was waived by the Chicago Bulls. And I know in a couple group chats I was in, a couple Bulls fans were disappointed. After all, Jones has only been here for a week. They acquired Kam from Indiana in exchange for the number 38 pick, which ended up being Braden Smith, who kind of had a homecoming. The Purdue star ended up going to the Indiana Pacers. Kam had already appeared in 37 games during his rookie season, and he showed flashes of a playmaker. He had an outstanding career at Marquette, averaging over 19 points per game as a senior. And, a lot of teams, or maybe some teams, felt like maybe he was worth a flyer. Waiting to see how he could perform on the court. Had the Bulls kept Kam, well, his salary would have been guaranteed at $2.15 million. But by waiving him before the deadline, Chicago is now only responsible for $1.075 million instead. Again, that may not sound like a huge difference, but saving more than $1 million while opening up another roster spot gives Bryson Graham additional flexibility as we head into free agency. And I think that's what this move was really about. I don't think it says that Kam Jones can't play. I think it just shows that the Bulls right now are valuing flexibility. Sometimes NBA decisions aren't about who the better basketball players are. It's about timing, roster construction, and keeping as many options open as possible. And we can talk about the timing and why this happened today, because free agency is now officially underway. The Bulls wanted their roster and their books in order before the market really starts moving. Right now, the Chicago is projected to have roughly $31 million in cap space, plus the $9.4 million room exception. Again, significant flexibility. Leonard Miller is now officially a part of the roster for next season. Nick Claxton is going to be joining the team very shortly. That puts the Bulls currently at 12 standard contracts, while also having 2 of their 3 two-way contracts, I hope that made sense, occupied. That means that Bryson Graham still has room to maneuver, whether it's going to be signing a free agent. We've heard names like Norman Powell, Quentin Grimes, or they could be making a trade or taking on salary, or maybe just rewarding someone who shines during Summer League. The Bulls have positioned themselves to react quickly, and that's not by accident. Good front offices prepare for opportunities before they necessarily arise, and that's what this feels like, preparation. So again, we take a look at the first couple moves of the Bulls free agency of the 2026 summer, and I don't think the story really is about Leonard Miller or Kam Jones. It's more about just getting the roster right and being prepared. Leonard Miller earned a guaranteed contract because the Bulls believe he can be a small part of what they're building. And at $2.41 million, he's the exact type of value contract that every team needs. Kam Jones is the unfortunate victim of roster math. By moving on before his contract becomes fully guaranteed, the Bulls get to cut his salary commitment in half. They preserve another roster spot and give themselves more flexibility as they enter free agency. These aren't the blockbuster moves that Bulls fans are waiting for, but I do think overall they are the smart one. For years, it felt like the Bulls were always reacting. Today, with the moves that they made, it sounds like they're actually planning. And with roughly $31 million in cap space, I think the Bulls, they're not done making moves. And I think this is more so maybe a setup for whatever comes next. And quite honestly, that's what Bulls fans should be excited about. What's the big move that's going to happen? How big of a move is it going to be? That's what we're going to talk about right here on the Bull-ieve Podcast. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed. Let me know your first thoughts, initial thoughts of this move. Would you have picked Kam Jones over Leonard Miller? I do think that there's maybe a chance that this was an either-or situation. I'll be honest, I like Leonard Miller. I like the impact that he had on last year's team. Is he a guy that's going to be a part of a rotation of a championship team? Maybe not, but did he show enough in those 27 games last year that it's worth trying out and seeing what kind of production he can have on this next year's team? I think so, especially with the whole acronym SLAP and what Bryson Graham is looking for in his basketball players. I think Leonard Miller fits that to a T. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section. I appreciate each and every one of you. Make sure you share this with a fellow Chicago Bulls fan. And until next time, see you red.